Good morning, everybody. It is Antietam 158, and it is September 17th. We are here on the day at the very approximate time in the Northwoods at the Joseph Poffenberger Farm, where the battle will truly open. We talked yesterday. I hope you'll check out some of our coverage about some of the actions on the 16th. We talked about bringing the armies here a little bit, but we're going to get into more specificity as we launch the battle. But first, we are, on a battlefield right now. Most battles are fought, in backyards and on farms, okay? And these people had just lived here, in this case, for the better part of a century, just trying to live their lives and work their land and enjoy their families and worship as they wanted to. And Joseph Poffenberger was one of the more prominent people in the area. He was able to expand his acreage before the Civil War, so he had some very good land holdings here. Joseph and his wife Mary Ann actually lived here, and it is a great example here at the Antietam National Battlefield to be able to see so many intact outbuildings. I mean, you're basically looking at some 18th and mostly 19th century structures that are in a great state of preservation over here. So let's watch, if Tim's willing to find the picture and bring it over, you can see what it looked like late in the 19th century. Poffenberger had been storing up everything for the winter like he normally would. He had a good year. There would have been high stacks of straw and the smokehouse would have been filled. But then, as Poffenberger said, the armies came. This happened to the whole community. They showed up one day, and then they camped here for 5 or 6 weeks, and the Union Army just took everything. He said, I had nothing left, and we're talking about all of his food stores, but also in the house. They took his family Bible, they took his china and whatnot, and you could not appeal to the federal government, for things done by Confederates, but you could for damage done by the Union Army. So he was going to be in a little bit more luck than Samuel Moomaw, whose house was burned by the Confederates here, okay? Just to orient you here, we are looking generally northwest over here toward the Poffenberger buildings. And if we look out that way, we're going to be looking across the old historic Hagerstown Pike, and Nicodemus Heights would be off to the left. And we're going to get into that soon enough. But first, let me bring on Doug Ullman. You recognize him. He's been on scores of our lives already, formerly of the Civil War Trust and all things New York and Atlanta campaign, but today Antietam.
Yeah, today Antietam, and we're not going to Moomaw, right? So, so good morning. It's important to think about when we think about the Battle of Antietam is the composition of the two armies that are going to fight here. The Confederate Army is essentially the same army that fought at Second Manassas just a few weeks earlier. It's the two wings of the army under Longstreet and Jackson, and they're mostly in position on the night of the 16th, or on their way here on the night on the night of the 16th, early part of the 17th. The Union Army is a completely different story. If you'll recall, in the summer of 1862, a new Union Army was formed called the Army of Virginia under John Pope. And this is the army that is going to fight at Second Manassas with the help of a couple of corps from the Army of the Potomac. In the aftermath of the Union defeat at Second Manassas, it is up to McClellan to cobble together all of those forces, not only his own Army of the Potomac, but also Pope's Army of Virginia, and put them into one fighting force. And so we have here units that you might be familiar with if you're familiar with Gettysburg or the latter part of the war, the 1st Corps, the 12th Corps. These are new units to the Army of the Potomac. The 1st Corps had previously been the 3rd Corps of the Army of Virginia, and Banks's Corps was become the 12th Corps of the Army of the Potomac. These large-scale units are fighting together for the very first time here on America's bloodiest single day. So that's something to think about. We have, where we're standing here is the 1st Corps location, which is now under the command of Joseph Hooker. Hooker had previously commanded a division just a few weeks ago. He's now commanding a corps for the very first time, troops that do not know him the way that the old 3rd Corps did. And he's got the Pennsylvania Reserves under George Meade, as well as Ricketts Division and Doubleday's Division that are of that corps, of that 1st Corps. They're going to open up the battle here, and as we move on, we'll introduce some of the other soldiers. But that's something that I like to remember when I think about the Battle of Antietam, is that this is a brand new army. The Army of the Potomac undergoes many changes throughout the war, and the bulk of the forces that are going to fight here at Antietam are new to this army, and they're fighting alongside each other for the very first time.
Super good point, Doug. Chris, let's come on over here. Looks like you're going to pan by Tim Smith here, who I failed to introduce when he showed the picture. You know him. You've seen him on our lives before. And yes, we're not in Gettysburg. Tim Smith has left the state of Pennsylvania. Now, what you can see here, by the way, is the regrowing North Woods. So in other words, we are north of the North Woods right now. And you can't see it right now, but you've already seen some of it. There's beautiful cornfields off to your left. These are, worked by local farmers, the Park Service, and other stewards, including the American Battlefield Trust, lease these lands that are preserved as battlefields out to farmers who can work them for a profit. It's a great partnership that most stewards of battlefields actually have to take care of their battlefield a little bit better. Now, you can start to see some of the monuments along, I think it's Mansfield Avenue here. Mansfield, of course, Joseph King Fenno Mansfield, the 12th Corps commander, has this road named in his honor. And you can see lots of monuments. We'll talk about those in a second. But first, I want to talk about this particular one by bringing up Bryan Cheeseboro. You saw him yesterday. National Archives, Civil War Defenses of Washington, and the Civil War Historians Facebook group. Hey, Bryan.
Hey, Gary. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pretty nippy morning here, and I'm standing here right next to the Clara Barton Monument. It's, I believe, the only monument to a civilian here on the Antietam battlefield. But I guess we can say that Miss Barton worked as hard as the soldiers did in this battle. She had a wagon full of bandages which she collected for quite some time before this, and by the time she actually arrived up here at Antietam, I think it was about noon that day on the 17th, and she had actually was able to express her wagon and get past others and stuff to get up here. She had a wagon full of bandages, and they were wrapping up soldiers' wounds with corn husks and whatever they could find. So she came at the right place at the right time, and she worked tirelessly here. I should also mention too, well, a couple things. One, besides the Barton Monument here, there's also another tribute to her is the Missing Soldiers office that she ran, which is in downtown DC, which is there to this day. This was discovered, I guess, some time ago. There's a great sign out there. It's on the plaque right here next to me, the placard here. It's great to have her here, and I think definitely for all the work that she did to save so many lives while she was here, this monument certainly is a great tribute to her. It's really good to have that.
Good, and I guess what I would add too is that Clara Barton also did very good work going down to Andersonville, helping to compile rolls. A lot of that work was used in this Republic of Suffering. For those of you who might have heard of or like that book, what I like best about this monument are the bricks that actually came from her Massachusetts home, inlaid into the monument. So you can get a little close to Clara Barton by doing this. You can also get a little closer to her by watching our War Department video that we shot at, or videos that we shot at the Missing Soldiers office, where they have a great storehouse of their materials and whatnot. And Doug Ullman just gave me the thumbs up from behind the camera. So you're with the American Battlefield Trust. We're on the Antietam battlefield. It's the 158th anniversary of the battle. We're leaving the Poffenberger Farm, crossing Mansfield Avenue, and we're going to walk through the North Woods. So Tim, maybe bring us up. Who's going through these woods on the morning of the 17th? Let's bring us up to the fight.
So you probably know at Antietam there are 3 sets of woods that play a prominent role in the fighting in the morning action. And they are, of course, the North Woods, the East Woods, and the West Woods. And you probably know that there's an effort ongoing to try to regrow the North Woods that had been removed many, many years ago. And it was out of these woods that the attack of the First Corps was launched on the morning of September 17th. And I find it interesting, Doug was talking about the 1st Army Corps and the attack of General Hooker. And, the 1st Army Corps, which many of us are fans of and spent a lot of time reading about it, its reputation was really solidified at the Battle of Antietam with their heavy losses on the morning of September 17th. Joseph Hooker was in charge. Obviously, there was some sort of plan that McClellan envisioned for the battle on September 17th. We spent a lot of time debating about how much of his plan he actually shared with General Hooker and what kind of understanding General Hooker had of the situation that morning. He's going to launch an attack of almost 9,000 men against the Confederate position. And he has really an inexact knowledge of where the Southerners are positioned that morning. A lot of it has to do with the fact that, they arrived here the night before, and it's early in the morning, and there's really not much time to reconnoiter the southern position. But let's look out across in this direction. At some point, General Hooker rides to the edge of the North Woods and looks across the fields and across the cornfield. Basically, his plan is to launch an assault towards a plateau where he can actually see, it's not visible at the moment, but you can actually see the Dunker Church, according to his account. And the 1st Army Corps has 3 divisions. The opening attack will be with Ricketts' division out of these very woods. Doubleday's division. Doubleday had taken over for John Hatch, who was wounded at South Mountain. And coming up and in reserve will be Meade's division. And these troops will move southward against the 2 southern divisions that are positioned south of the cornfield and over in the West Woods area. Jones's division and Lawton. And, you know, initially, there's really no support for the 1st Corps attack. And that's sort of a common story throughout Antietam, that a unit is thrown in, or the units are thrown in piecemeal, and the attacks are not supported by the other troops around them. Eventually, the 12th Army Corps will be brought up, but initially it's just going to be the 1st Army Corps moving southward against the southern position in an unknown strength. Now, one of the problems that adds to this attack is the fact that there is a hill off to the west, just in distance here, and we have a photograph from the 1880s from the Hagerstown Pike looking up towards it, and this is Nicodemus Heights. And at the time, it's a lot less wooded than it is now. And even today, when we walk over to the pike and look up, there are a large amount of woods along the pike. This was a Confederate artillery position. I believe there were like 14 artillery pieces there, Jeb Stuart's horse artillery. And these cannons would enfilade the attack of the 1st Army Corps throughout the morning action. And it's kind of interesting that no attempt was made really by the Union 1st Army Corps to eliminate the threat of this artillery on their flank. Perhaps they didn't realize that it was going to be such a threat early on in the attack. Again, the attack started at dawn, so maybe they were unaware of the strength of that position and how it was going to affect their attack. They did actually pull some artillery back, 1st Corps artillery, and use that artillery and counter battery fire against those heights. And that artillery would be sorely needed in the attack that came across these fields and across through the cornfield. And perhaps, they thought that it would be too strong of a position to take. Maybe they were not sure of the Confederate strength on the other side of the position. But clearly, with hindsight, we realize that a small amount of Union soldiers could have captured that hill or driven the Confederate artillery off of that hill, and then that threat would be alleviated on the flank and would have made for a much more effective attack in the morning action. Basically, in this area, we're going to talk about it coming up, probably in another video, but we're talking about where Ricketts' division of 3 brigades crossed this field in the morning action. And again, even with the division, the attack was not well coordinated. Dorier's brigade went across the field initially unsupported. Hartstuff's brigade, which was supposed to go in with them, he was wounded, and the message did not get to the brigade right away for them to move. And then Christian's brigade, the colonel of that brigade, Colonel Christian, lost his nerve and apparently fled the brigade. So it was sort of an unsupported attack, and the brigades went individually. They saw heavy fire, and they lost a huge amount of their men in the morning action.
All right. I thought Tim was going to take us all the way to the final attack there. Thanks, man. Two things before we wrap up this particular video. One, Tim already pointed out some of Nicodemus Heights and whatnot, but I want to say, don't let the cut corn deceive you. The actual cornfield, which is in that direction, is a few hundred yards ahead of us. Then it goes from there to the cars that you see in the distance, basically. Part of it's been cut, so it's hard. I also want to focus on, you might be able to see the top of the David R. Miller house. We're doubtless going to go there today, so I wanted to make sure you saw that as well. In other words, we are generally looking south, covering the whole battlefield from the north. You can't see most of it, such as the sunken road and the Burnside Bridge, but I wanted to point that out. Secondly, most of you are aware already from watching yesterday that we're partnering with Ancestry to give away a couple of subscriptions to Ancestry.com, one-year subscriptions, and maybe some Fold 3s as well. Yesterday's winner, Matt Young from Baltimore, Maryland. Well done, because he not only referenced 3 of the answers together, but did it with flair. So congratulations to Matt. And to that end, I'm going to break out 4 more, and let's see if you can do that. At any point, I'm going to mention 2 words that come from a quote, sequentially in a quote. Tell me who said it and what the circumstances were. One of them is both ways. Who said both ways in part of a famous quote? Another one, an easy one. One is called The Shade. Okay. Another one that is associated with that somewhat is strike the. And maybe one that is more associated with what we're doing here today, and that is fatigues anything. Who said that in a particular quote? Write those into the comments. Try to be witty, funny, or complete about it, and you might win an Ancestry subscription for the year. With that, I want to thank Brian, Tim, Doug, and also Chris White behind the camera, and intern intern Shannon helping us today. Connor's not with us today. And thank you for watching. Check out our coverage from earlier during any of the gaps from today, and thank you for supporting Battlefield Preservation.